Sudanese novel, History and Development, Part 2. The audience, this is our second encounter in our journey through a documentary series dedicated to the history and development of the Sudanese novel. In our encounter today, we delve deeper into the emergence and development as well as the stages of this literary form in the country. In addition to the varied schools within this genre of literature, highlighting a number of distinguished and influential authors and novelists, before concluding with the discussion of the first Sudanese novel. So the audience, as you listen, this is our second encounter with the history and development of the Sudanese novel. And in today's episode, we would like to go further, having more ideas on the Sudanese novel, its developments, stages, having the most prominent Sudanese authors and novelists. And we would like to conclude, as you listen, with having the first ever Sudanese novels that have been penned by a Sudanese writer. So the audience would like to start this episode in our second encounter with the history of the Sudanese novel with a speech on two significant and important schools that constitute the formative period or the formative stage of the Sudanese novel. And in this particular context, I would like to focus on the Romanticism school of thought, with a special reference to novel, in other words, the romantic novel from a side, and then to have the social realism as a school of literary movement, moreover with a special concern to what is come to be known as the social realist novel. In the Sudanese literary circles, romantic heroism continued to constitute the major component of early Sudanese fictional works, even when social realism was becoming widespread in other Arabic literatures, and especially the novel and the short story in Egypt. In spite of the fact that Sudanese writers read Western literature in translation avidly, and most Egyptian novels of social realism that were being published at the time, they continued to produce sentimentally romantic novel. When Badawi Abdul Qadir Khalil wrote his first novel, هايم على الأرض ورسائل الحرمان, A Wanderer on the Earth, or Letters of Deprivation, which was published in Cairo in 1954, he used a highly romantic style devoid of realism. The romantic trend went on being popular throughout the 50s and 60s. As the following titles of novels bear witness. حتى الرجوع. By the way, this is a novel by the writer Shakir Mustafa. حتى الرجوع, Until You Return. سر الدموع, another novel. The Secret of Tears by Muhammad Usman. And the novel حياة الدموع, The Life of Tears by Hindi Awad al-Karim. So the most exemplified pattern of this school is that novel of Tajoj. for the writer Usman Hashim. Romanticism to realism. So as you listen the audience, just presenting glimpses of the school that express and reflect the nature of the Sudanese novel. I have provided very short notes about Romanticism as part of the literary movement in Sudan with special preference to novel, and now here I would like sharing another school within this genre of literature, and that is realism. So before we go further in our discussion, providing some ideas about realism, here I would like to share the definition of social realism in literature. In fact, there are so numerous definitions for this concept of literary movement as part of novel. And here I would like to share the definition of this concept as has been taken from study.com, specialized website on literature. So in this website, social realism has been defined as literature that is just focuses on the daily lives of the working class. It attempts to create a story and exposition that is true to real life and creates a social commentary. Another example of definition for this concept I would like to share from Dictionary of Literary Terms by Coles. According to him, realism in literature is the manner and method of picturing life as it really is, untouched by idealism or romanticism. As the manner of writing, realism relies on the use of specific details to interpret life faithfully and objectively. In contrast to romance, this concern with the bizarre and psychological in its approach to character, presenting the individual rather than the type. Often, fate plays a major role in the action. And realism became prominent in the English novel with such writers as Daniel Defoe, Samuel Richardson, Henry Fielding, Jane Austen, Charlotte Bronte, and some others. For more information in this topic, I would like to referring you to M.M. Gooby with their published paper, The Concept of Social Realism in Global English Literature, published in International Journal of Arts, Science and Humanities, 2025. Sudanese social realism novel. During the 1960s, many Sudanese students who had gone to England and other European countries to study returned home. Having absorbed Western culture during their stay abroad, Western-educated Sudanese intellectuals began to introduce new ideas and writing techniques into Sudanese literature. So as you listen, the audience, social realism novel in its Sudanese setting or in its Sudanese manifestation has been connected with the Sudanese students who had gone to Britain and some European countries. So with their absorption to Western culture and their encounter with Western literature in general and novels in particular, when they back to the country, they have been impacted by that trend as part of novel writings, and then the manifestation of this impact and influence has been appeared on the writing, with a special reference here to novel. However, novels of social realism began to appear alongside romantic fiction. The first true example of this genre is الفراغ العريض. الفراغ العريض, by the way, by Malikat Ad-Dar Muhammad Abdullah, has been published posthumously in 1970, 1 year after the death of the author. So the death here of the first Sudanese female writer and novelist, Malikat Ad-Dar Muhammad, was in 1969, while her novel الفراغ العريض has been published 1970. And as you follow, what I'm trying to do just in this particular context is to refer to Malikat Ad-Dar novel الفراغ العريض as the first social realism novel in Sudan. The novel caused quite stir due mainly to the fact that it was written by a woman and depicted for the first time the life of the working woman and the difficulties she encounters within Sudanese society. In spite of its significance in being the first work of fiction to give a subjective view of the modern Sudanese woman, the novel is marred by an over-romantic approach and idyllic descriptions of the Sudanese countryside. Sudanese novel 1960s, a major leap. The 1960s witnessed a qualitative leap in Sudanese fiction alongside the dissemination and the outspread of the novels in diverse settings by diverse writers. The most significant breakthrough came with الطيب صالح, whose works rapidly elevated the Sudanese novel to international recognition. He soon came to be regarded as one of the finest novelists in both the Arab world and world literature. 1960s also saw the emergence of several novelists. However, the romantic current and trend with its tragic love narratives remained dominant in many works, for the title to final line. Only a few writers such as الطيب صالح, Abu Bakr Khalid in The Bitter Spring, الربيع المر, and Ibrahim Ishaq in An Event in a Village, حدث في القرية, that is 1969, largely escape this tendency. So here what I would like to say is that Sudanese novel is witness diverse nature of expression. Some writers still follow the way of Romanticism as a school of literary production, while some others follow the way of social realism in their novel production. '70s, ascendancy of realism. The audience, I would like to draw your attention that I'm presenting Sudanese novel history and development, and in this particular context I would like further to inform about the different stages of the Sudanese novel throughout time with its development evolution, in addition to backing up the speech with examples of the Sudanese novelist writings. And as you follow, we have stated that Sudanese novel historically has been dominated by two schools, Romanticism and then social realism. So now here we have 1970s, and in this concern I would like to tell, during the 1970s, realism became the prevailing mode. Tayyip Saleh continued his project with Zawal Bayt and Mariud, while Ibrahim Ishaq published أعمال الليل والبلدة, that is in 1971. Moreover, Abu Bakr Khalid, one of renowned Sudanese earliest and pioneers of novel writings, Abu Bakr Khalid released his novel الغبز فوق الحائط القصير, that was in 1976, and then the novelist Omar Al-Hamidi published his noted novel جزيرة العوض, which has been described by the novelist and poet Jamal Muhammad Ahmed as the novel of the 70s in Arabic. In this period, that's the 1970s, Romanticism proceeded, replaced by various strands of realism, social, artistic, and critical. Novelists demonstrated greater awareness of the novel as an art form, with reduced rhetorical, didactic tones and fewer overt emotional outcries. '80s and 1990s and beyond. In the 1980s and early of 1990s, some new attempts were made by Sudanese novelists to write works directed at an international audience. Dr. Francis Deng, a former Sudanese diplomat living in the United States, published two political novels, The Seed of Redemption, that is in 1986, and Cry of the Owl, that is in 1991. Both novels, which were published in the United States, are written in English. Although the second novel has been translated into Arabic, neither works seem to have made a strong impact either in the Sudan or in the rest of the Arab world. Their value, however, stems from their being a major contribution by a writer who, although a native of the Arabic-speaking North, writes from a southern Sudanese perspective, since he belongs culturally and ethnically to the non-Arab minority in the north and the south. This is a significant step. Sudanese literature. This is a significant step in Sudanese literature, as previously works with a southern non-Arab theme were practically non-existent. from 2000 to the present day. Since the beginning of the new millennium, the Sudanese novel has witnessed a remarkable flourishing, achieving wide recognition that revitalized the literary movement, particularly the art of the novel, which has firmly established its position and continues to exert a strong and lasting influence to this day. And in this concern, I would like to draw your attention that since the beginning of the second or the new millennium, Sudanese writers, Sudanese novelists, those who write in Arabic and those who write in other foreign languages, mainly English language, have produced so numerous novels, and at the very same time, part of them have achieved greatest prizes, and they were winners. And in this concern here, just I would like to share the great achievement that have been achieved by Reem Jaffer, the Sudanese novelist live abroad. She made her first achievement for her own self and for the country throughout her novel A Mouse Full of Salt, which has won 2023 of the Island Prize as the first book by a Sudanese writer, the first novel by a Sudanese writer to be recognized by the prize. Moreover, Layla Abu al-Ila, the noted and the prominent celebrated Sudanese novelist, furthermore has been awarded the 2025 Pin Painter Prize, for she has been lauded for her rich perspectives on faith, migration, and displacement in fiction. Celebrated and prominent Sudanese novelist. The audience in this part of our episode, just I would like to share part of the prominent Sudanese novelists and writers throughout history, with a special reference to those who specialize on novel writings. So I would like to start with Malakat al-Dar, محمد طيب صالح أبو بكر خالد إبراهيم إسحاق ليلى أبو العلا منصور الصويم أمير تاج السر بشرى الفاضل فرانسيس دينك تعبان لول يونغ جمال محمد إبراهيم جمال محجوب and Jamal Mahjoub, by the way, a Sudanese British writer. He writes his novels in English. Another Sudanese novelist, Omar Fadlallah, Rania Mamoun, Hamid al-Nazir, and we have another celebrated and prominent Sudanese writer, Stella Giatano, And here I would like to say that she used to write her novels and literary texts in Arabic. The celebrated Sudanese writer Abdulaziz Baraka Sakin, moreover Hamur Ziyada, Hassan al-Bakri, Imad al-Bilek, and finally we have Reem Jafar. In fact, they told those are most prominent Sudanese writers, novelists, and in fact there are some other prominent famous writers among the literary writers, the literary circles of the Sudanese novel. It's worth noting that the three writers and the novelist from our beloved south of the Sudan, which is separated from the motherland, Sudan, in 2011, namely the veteran diplomat, writer, and novelist Francis Deng, alongside the novelist of distinguished literary achievement, Taban Lo Leong, and the emerging writer with notable works, Stella Giat Kano, were all born in Sudan, the mother country, and were an integral part of the broader Sudanese literary movement. Their mention here stems from the simple principle that they contributed at various stages to shaping the literary scene in the country, and that their presence formed an inseparable part of Sudan's cultural and creative landscape. First Sudanese novel. In the Sudanese literary circles, Tajoj comes as the first Sudanese ever written novel, and that was in 1948. So in 1948, Sudan literary movement witnessed the emergence of the first written, perceived novel, and that was in 1948. And in fact, this romantic love story has been written by the Sudanese author and novelist Osman Muhammad Hashim. In this work, I'm referring here to Tajoj, the first Sudanese novel. In this work, the author drew heavily on Sudanese oral narrative heritage, reworking the famous folk tale, The Love of Tajoj and Al-Muhallaj. The novel is set in Eastern Sudan among the Biye tribes, particularly the Hamran and Hadandawa tribes. Tajoj, a Hamrani woman famed for extraordinary beauty, became a proverbial symbol of loveliness. According to some accounts, She lived in the first half of the 19th century. المحلق, a violent horseman and leader of his tribe, falls deeply in love with his cousin Tajoj and marries her, only for the reunion to end in tragedy. Osman Hashim successfully transformed this popular tale into a modern novel, demonstrating notable skill in structuring the dramatic separation of the lovers and shaping their tragic end. True to the archetype of classic love stories, it's worth noting that this famous love story has been transformed into film during 1970s. Before saying farewell and bringing this episode to a close, I would like to extend my sincere thanks and deep appreciations to my brothers. Translator Ustaz Umar Muhammad Al-Amin Wadi Shair, the translator Professor Fadlallah Ismail Ali, Dr. Fath Rahman Abdul Wahid Jubara Nasir, for their continuous encouragement, insightful opinions, and generous support. They have never hesitated to offer their sound advice, and whenever I saw their counsel throughout our ongoing documentation journey of the religious, Sufi, and literary movements in the country. End of this episode, I would like the audience to point out to the sources that I depend on to introduce this episode, which in fact, as you follow, is our second encounter in our journey with the history of the Sudanese novel. Study.com website. Iman al-Noor, the development of contemporary literature in Sudan, research in African literature, volume 28, number 3, Arabic writing in Africa, published in 1997. Another source, M.M. Gobi, the concept of social realism in global English literature, International Journal of Arts, Science and Humanities, published paper on 2025. Encyclopedia Britannica, and then المشهد الرواية في السودان, published article on المدينة المنورة journal on 4th of June 2010. By this, the audience, I came to the end of the episode. Till seeing you in another episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.